Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Midnight Madness Chats with Hardman. I've got a great guest on here tonight. Please introduce yourself and tell us what you do.
So my name is Melanie, and I am a singer, songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, and I'm a lot of other things too. I'm an artist and I'm a dancer and an author, but my main focus really is my music, and I've been performing live as a professional musician now for 9 years. And I have a bunch of recorded work which is out there that anyone can go and listen to, with some new stuff coming out very soon.
Oh, that's awesome. We're excited to hear the new stuff. Take me back, take me to the beginning. Where did music start for you? What inspired you to start making music?
So I have always written lyrics and had melodies in my head, literally since I was a kid. And I can remember being about 9 or 10 years old and sitting in a tree and coming up with a list of all the things I really wanted to be. And music was right at the top. I always knew that making music was something I had to do. It was like something I was so excited about, even as a kid. So I started out at about the age of 10 playing the piano. Entirely by ear, self-taught, can't read music at all. And then when I was about 13, I picked up a guitar and started playing a guitar, and that felt a bit more like something I could move around with. So that became my main instrument kind of from there on out for a long while. And most of my live performances these days are me with my guitar and my band, and I'm slowly branching back into piano, funnily enough, but it's been a long journey to come back that way. So I think music kind of was in me. I didn't really come to music so much as I was already full of it, and just had to share it with the world. I did have some crazy stage fright though, and that really almost derailed the whole plan. I had to get over that before I could actually get started. And I tried a couple of times when I was about like 21. I kind of got on stage with my guitar, and I was just shaking so badly. I couldn't even like play a note. I couldn't hold my guitar still. I couldn't hear myself singing. It was just like ringing in my ears. So I really had to work on the stage fright before I could get up and properly share what I had to share with the world.
That's something that I also fought with when I started out. I also remember the first time I was playing, I had like this severe anxiety, and it's something that haunts me till today. And that's why we drink. Uh,
It takes the edge off.
it helps a lot. It creates my little personality that I've made for stage. Tell me about being a multi instrumentalist. You started out by playing piano. Would you say that was an advantage as a musician? Because piano is a lot more theory based, even though you said you're not very into theory. But I think it's a good theory foundation.
I think the piano is great because everything is laid out in front of you. Every note you could possibly hear is there. And you learn through the piano to combine different notes to make chords that sound right. And because I'm a musician that plays by ear, it's very much a kind of what sounds right is what guides me. And in a lot of ways, I'm really lucky because it means I can pick up almost any instrument and very quickly figure out how to play it because I'm listening for the right sounds and the right combinations of sounds. In some ways, it's a disadvantage because it's made me lazy. So it's made me not actively learn how to read music, which might have helped. But who knows? Maybe it's part of my originality. So yeah, I think the piano was a really good starting place. I think it allowed me to explore the full range of notes I had at my disposal and to really learn how to kind of follow and the melodies I heard in my head and kind of compose. And then when I went over to guitar, I was finger picking a lot. So it was a lot of like finger picked melodies, which was in some ways similar to the piano, where I was finding individual notes on each string on the guitar and then piecing together a melody in that way. And it was only later on that I started learning chords and combining those notes to actually make chords and strum and find rhythm rather than just melodies.
I like that, and it's a very interesting topic. We never like went into the theory and stuff. And lately, because we're in a very demanding sort of genre where metal, it's like it's very demanding. I started learning theory. But one of the biggest fears for me as a musician, because I didn't know any theory, was I was so scared that when I start learning theory, it will take away the natural aspect of my music writing capabilities. And I do believe that is the fact. And I think
Mm.
a musician that doesn't have the training, that has, like, I'm talking about theory training, they have a more natural feeling towards music. And I think sometimes the music that comes from a musician that doesn't have the necessary training and stuff is more raw, more bare, more spiritual, I guess, in a way.
Mm.
Um, would you say that is what your music is like?
I think so. Someone recently, I've always battled with genre and describing what genre my music falls into because it's very diverse and it ranges from everything from like very Celtic medieval style finger picked bardic like storytelling through to stuff that's more like blues rock. Um, so it's like it's such a diverse range, and even like African maskandi stuff, like it is really diverse. So I've always battled to fit it into a genre and say this is what it is and tie it down. And someone who was listening to a radio show that my stuff was being played on got hold of me and said that they felt like avant-garde described my music, and then he sent me a link to a description of what avant-garde was, and I thought that was actually like really appropriate because it's more about breaking out of genres and remolding something and using tradition to kind of pave the way for something new and something that is different from what came before. And I think that is actually probably a fairly good fit for what I do. um, because I think that because I don't have any sort of classical technical training, it is very much a what comes from my soul kind of thing. And that is unique to each individual person, which is it's the beauty of art and music, is that we bring something new to the world. We Every song we create is like a new something being born that didn't exist before,
Mm.
especially if it's coming from such a raw and untrained place. It's actually a wonderful thing. So, yeah, I do agree with you that perhaps there is an element of more kind of free spirit coming through if you're not coming from a place of technical training. And I mean, for me, I perform and I have friends who are incredible musicians. I've got like Reno Theron. He's part of an amazing metal band, but he's also one of the most incredible guitarists. Like watching that man play guitar is hugely intimidating and inspirational all at the same time. And then Ben Bruzaz from The Name on the Drum, who's also my one of part of my band, and he does a lot of like lead guitar on my stuff. He also has like superb technical knowledge, and it is like a pleasure to watch him play. So I'm not saying that knowing the technical stuff necessarily takes away from every musician's journey, but
Mm.
perhaps from a musician like myself who's come from a place of pure inspiration and just following my heart and my own inner tune, perhaps for me it is just the way it should be.
No, that's true. We're not saying that musical theory driven musicians are not good at what they do. They obviously know exactly what they do, and you do get some good music from it. But you've got a very, very distinctive style. I will be honest. So mostly I interview such a variety of musicians, and we get quite a lot of music. So it's rare nowadays to find an artist that is so out of the norm, that's so different. It's rare because I think in musicianship, music has developed to such a point where it's difficult to do something different. It's
Yeah,
it's so
totally.
it's so developed. There's so much happening in the music industry. So, and you say you've got a little bit of an African influence, but I don't think it's African, in my personal opinion. It's more of, I don't know if you know, like the Australian sort of, in the late 80s, 90s, there was a very specific style. So it's almost like hinting towards that with this very strong Celtic, like medieval feel. It's brilliant. It's great. I really enjoy it. Um, do you think you draw any inspiration from something like Australian, like I don't even know what to call it. It's almost like folk type of music.
So I really love what you're saying because I draw inspiration from worldwide folk, like traditional folk, everything from Celtic folk, which is tied fairly closely to my ancestral roots, all the way through to, stuff that's more like Norse and Icelandic, through to stuff that's more Australian. I do definitely have a passion for some Australian musicians and the work that they put out there. So I do think it does influence and color the sounds that I then internally hear. Um, I do feel like I need to go and check out Australian folk from the 80s, though, now that we've had this chat. So, yeah, I think that I draw inspiration from tribal music from all over the world. And I find that there's a common root that connects them all, whether it's from Africa, Australia, or whether it's all the way from Scotland and Ireland or Germany. I feel like if you go all the way back to the sounds that kind of connect tribal music, you find that there's common denominators, that there's like a common rhythmic structure, that there's common sounds that I suppose our instruments at that point would have been making. The instruments that are more simple and raw, they're like definitely a common tribal sound if you really break it down and strip away what you think of the cultures that made that music. And that's definitely affected the stories I tell. Even the lyrics that I write reference folk legend and myth from all over the world, and I love those stories. I was definitely passionate about mythology growing up, and it's affected the stories that I now like to tell through my music.
Yeah, so that was the next question is the inspiration. So you're saying you take sort of like an inspiration. Um, so I speak a lot about what I do because I take reference from how I think and stuff, and it's interesting to hear other people's opinion. So what I do is when I write a song is I sort of hear a story. It might not even be a full story. It might be a sort of a piece of a story, and then I will write a fable about it. So
Mm.
it would not even maybe remotely be really what happened or whatever. So where do you start? Where do you start? Where does the story start? Where do you find the inspiration to write about the specific mythology or situations that you do write about?
So it's very interesting for me. Over the past sort of 6 months, I've actually been running songwriters workshops where I've been trying to guide other people to make more original music and to write original songs. And so I've actually been discussing this fairly frequently. And sometimes I write the music first, and the music then colors the story that I tell. So occasionally I'll write a piece of music and I get an image out of the sound almost. The sound starts to create a feeling, a sensation, and that gives me a picture of some kind. And that picture then leads to the first bit of the story, and I let it kind of follow on from there. And then there's other times where I have stories already in mind. And as I'm composing pieces of music, some of them fit together like two pieces of a puzzle. Um, I've even had poems that I've written and music that I've written years apart that suddenly, when I come to them together, realize that they're actually a song. And they were just two separate pieces lying in different drawers for a while. Um, so my inspiration is also very diverse, which I suppose is what makes the music so diverse too, is because I'm not pulling from one kind of set of inspirations. Um, if I'm looking at mythologies, I usually find whatever really distinctive image a myth contains. I find the character in that myth, and then I find how that character is relevant to our lives now and the stories that we tell, our common stories that we all go through, our life journeys. We all go on a journey to discover ourselves, and a lot of ancient myths and legends are discussing those same kinds of journeys that people went through. A journey inward to find out who you are and to express that in the world. And so I try to connect the myths and legends of the world with who we are now and the journeys we're going through.
I also, when I was listening to your music, I listened to various tracks, and I get a sense of spiritual journey as well. Even though, like you say, it's sort of a story that you're telling, there's a lot of sort of life lessons hidden in the cracks between your lyrics. And I love poetry. I love metaphors. I love people hiding stories behind other stories. And there's a very big like twist in everything you said. There's a lot of lyrics that you sort of can fold it different ways depending on you know what your mood maybe feels like, what that type of person's going through at that very point in life. um, Tell me about that. Is it a natural thing that you just naturally write like that, or is it like a planned thing where you actually go into trying to write these like hidden
These
messages?
multi-layered things.
Yeah.
So as I grew up, I got into learning more about what's known as mystery traditions, right? And mystery traditions are, again, very connected to our tribal, spiritual, ancestral journeys. And all of those have sort of spiritual messages that you uncover as you develop as a human being. And as your understanding deepens about the world around you and how you fit into it, and the cycles of nature and the cycles of the sun and the moon, and how that all affects this planet, you start to realize that there's connections between everything, and those connections are often hidden in metaphor. So when I started writing songs, I was hiding a lot of those truths that I found in the metaphors so that they could be taken at face value. But for anyone who was interested and wanted to delve a little deeper and find a little secret hidden something, there was always something hidden in the mystery of the song. So I really love the fact that you picked that up. I think that that then is a pretty good indicator that I'm doing a good job at what I'm trying to do, that I do like metaphor, because metaphor for me creates wonderful images and really strong connections and associations, and it's very makes it very relatable to anyone, because like you said, you will hear something different in that metaphor dependent on where you are, on who you are, on how you're feeling. So metaphors are great because they make the lyrics very broadly accessible to a whole diverse range of people. But I also have definitely hidden little secrets and little secondary stories and connections. And if you know anything about the mystery traditions, about the myths and legends of the world, you'll pick those up and think like, oh, cool, did I find something secret there? And yes, you did.
So I love it. Yeah, that's one of the things that inspires me the most about lyrics is I think I always say to people when they ask me about my own lyrics, what does it mean? Then I always say it's open to artistic interpretation. And that is such a powerful sentence because um, you wrote this story, but there's so much happening in the story. Tell me about KwaZulu Natal. I've myself have toured to KwaZulu Natal 3 times, and I've known many, many. I know Reno Turon as well, and many, many KwaZulu Natal musicians. It seems like it's a very raw industry, but
Mm.
it's a very passionate industry. So tell me about what you guys have as a scene in KwaZulu Natal.
So I feel that we perhaps are lacking in support from the public in KZN. The public in KZN just don't like to go out unless conditions are perfect, right? So if the sun is shining and the weather is good and it's the right day of the week, they'll be there. But if it's a little drizzly, like, you can just expect half your crowd not to bother getting out their beds and leaving their houses, which is a bit sad, because I think in KZN we have some of the most passionate musicians, and we actually have an incredible community of musicians here in KZN, which is something that I'm not sure necessarily exists elsewhere in our country as much as it does here. here in KZN, we collaborate a lot with each other. So we all have this melting pot of musical ideas and connections, and we all feature on each other's tracks, and we record with each other, and we can be playing a festival and literally pull musicians from other bands onto stage with us, because we've all been working together now for so long, and we all know each other's stuff so well that we can just share, and it makes each and every show so vibrant and unique, that really, if you're not there, you've missed something that'll never happen again, something epic. It's a really beautiful thing, and I think it's one of the things I'm really grateful about, that the KZN music scene was very welcoming and encouraging amongst musicians, even if our crowds don't necessarily show up as much as they should. Um, and even if we are running short on venues, we've got a couple of really great venues, but we're definitely running low on great venues for live music here in KZN these days. But we have amazing musicians, and we've got the best musical community here.
It's definitely like a family. I must admit, we've every time we've been to KZN, we were treated like, royalty. Everyone knows everyone. Like, it's like a small community. It's so vibrant. It's so alive. Um, it's got passion. It's got love. It's amazing, and that's why I love going to KZN. It's just the vibe is completely different.
Yeah.
So tell me about your music. What's next? What can we expect in the upcoming year for 2025?
So I am releasing my next album, which is called There and Then, and that's going to be out on the 25th of January, um, kicking off the new year. I've been releasing a few singles, radio edits off the album in the last couple of months, just to try and get it out there and build a bit of hype. Um, There and Then follows on from my first album, which was Here and Now. So Here and Now was more of the kind of African stuff, more of the like light-hearted, um, kind of light-spirited stuff that I was writing as I started professionally performing. And that was colored by the musicians I was working with at the time, which were like Nibs van der Spey, Guy Buttry. They were my influences hugely at that beginning, early stage of my musical journey, and they really helped get me started. And then There and Then has been in the works for a while. It's all of the more dark, Celtic, spiritual stuff that I've kind of written my whole life through and just kept under wraps. And it's actually the stuff I'm most excited to share, because it's really powerful stuff, lots of myth, lots of legend, lots of hidden secret messages and stories in the works, and a lot of like fingerpicked melodies. And the album's really cool because I think it's got a really good balance between kind of your more um Celtic fingerpicked stuff, some stuff that almost has like a slightly Tibetan kind of feel to it, all the way through to stuff that's more like bluesy rock, that's got a bit more of like a driving beat and a driving guitar rhythm, and it's a good balance of the two. And when I started putting these 10 tracks together, I found that there was actually like an underlying story that connected all the songs, that there was a story of a girl and there was a story of a guy and the story of the journey that they went on. So yeah, there is actually a whole story. If you listen to the album from beginning to end, you'll pick up that there is a story that follows all the way through. And I'm very excited to get it out there. So 25th of January is the day.
Yeah, I'm excited. 25th of January, definitely gonna be slotting that in my diary. I would be one of the first people to listen to this. But I feel like even in the titles, you already started telling a story. There's like already, so we haven't even gotten to the content yet because the content is not released, but just the titles, there's already between the two albums, there's already something happening. There's already a story being told. So, can you dive a little deeper into that?
So I think very carefully about what I call things and about when I release things. Even the release dates of my songs or albums have got significance to them. Um, And I actually didn't realize I was putting so much thought into it until people started asking me about it. And then I was like, actually, yeah, I do think about this pretty hard. So here and now was actually spelled HEAR, like as in to here and now. And it was really just a very freely created album. The stuff that was like in that moment, what I was internally hearing right then and there, and I was sharing it now. And so when I released it on little MP3 players that people could literally stick headphones into and listen to here and now. And then at some point I joked that the next album should be called There and Then, because it was all the stuff from like centuries ago. It almost has this old otherworldly feel to it. And I knew that the next album was going to be all of the more Celtic medieval kind of stuff. And it felt like ever since I was a kid and I was writing that kind of music, I felt like it had come from centuries ago. And I wasn't even sure if it would have a place in the world now or have an audience who would appreciate it. So it was the stuff from there and then. And then I realized it's also the stuff that's colored by my ancestry, which is the there and then that I came from. So that definitely very early on became the title of the next album before I'd even fully decided which songs were on there. I just knew the kind of vibe it needed to have. Um, so I've been joking that the next one's going to be what and why, because we got to start asking some deep like questions after this.
Tell me, what can I, who have never seen you live, expect from a performance?
So I am very honest. Like you said earlier, we all develop like a stage persona. And I do think that that happens accidentally as a musician. You get on stage and you become a slightly more unique version of yourself on stage than you are anywhere else. So I'm slightly funnier on stage than I am actually in person, slightly wittier on stage than I am actually in person. Um, but I really love to tell stories. I like to talk to my audience and involve people wherever I can. Normally these days it's myself on guitar, and then I've usually got my friend Dusty, who is my drummer on the djembe drum, and I've got Ben Bruzaz on the electric guitar and harmonica and backing vocals. So occasionally I pull in someone else like Skippy on the mandolin. So the shows are very diverse, but the sound is very full and very interesting and very multi-layered. Um, and I think that um, it's a very friendly show. Like everyone really enjoys hanging out with me for that time. I try and make it like a very conversational, interactive experience where I'm playing a lot of music, but at the same time, we're having a good chat and getting to know each other, which I think is also great. Certainly helps to bring people back time and time again because they feel like they're coming to hang out with a friend.
This comes from a deep argument I've been having with myself. Have you ever had sort of like a spiritual battle with your stage persona?
In some ways, yes. I think that in every artist, there is that battle that goes on between being integrous and being true to what you as the artist want to put out there and create, and doing what you feel people will like. And it's a difficult balance because you get on stage and you obviously want people to enjoy the show. You want people to vibe with the music. And so I've had to catch myself sometimes where I'm either trying to write stuff that I think people will like and go like, hey, hold on. Like, is that actually what you want to be putting out there? Um, and at the same time on stage where I have to make sure that I'm still me in a sense, even though there is a persona that exists there. I'm me as a person, I'm very straightforward, sometimes brutally honest, maybe sometimes too much. And I do know that my stage persona's got a little more tact, which is good. But I have to just be aware that I'm not there to people please. As much as I'm there to put on a good show and have people enjoy the show, I'm not there to people please.
I love that. That is sort of a little bit of the battle I've been fighting myself. So, last little thing, tell me where can people find your music? Where can people find you on social media? What is your social handles?
So people can find me on Instagram under Dawn underscore Melanie underscore. Or if you just search Dawn Melanie, I do tend to come up. There aren't that many people with my name, fortunately. Same on Facebook. You can find me as Dawn Melanie. You can find me on TikTok as Dawn Melanie. So it's YouTube, Dawn Melanie. It's all fairly straightforward. And it's Dawn, like the rising sun, and then Melanie, Melanie. Um, yeah, so you can pretty much find me on most social media platforms and on all streaming platforms. My music is out there on streaming platforms that I had never even heard of. So it's fairly widely distributed. So it shouldn't be too hard to find. Um, yeah, and the only other fun fact I can tell you really about myself is about my name. The reason I go by Dawn Melanie, Dawn is actually my first name and Melanie is my second name. A lot of people call me Melanie. They think the Dawn is just some quirky title I've given myself, like some like some spiritual hippie chick. But actually my name on my ID book is Dawn Melanie. My mom was very clever and again also hid a little secret message even in my name. So I suppose she's the one who started me out on this metaphoric journey. But dawn obviously is the moment just before the sun rises, and Melanie means darkness. So for me, it became really appropriate, especially with my music being so diverse, that it contains the light and it contains the dark, and so do I. So it's the name I go by.
That is so deep. So, the metaphors and the deep meaning started even before you were born. Which is
Absolutely, absolutely.
brilliant. But thank you so much for your time. Thanks for coming onto the podcast. Good luck with your music and definitely check out the new stuff. I'm so excited for that.
Thank you.
Next year, 25 January.
Yeah, planetary alignment, by the way. There's like 7 planets aligning on the 25th of January, and my album's dropping. So it's a great day, you know?
Yo, that is insane. That is, I never actually thought about that. You do think a lot. You plan, you're a hardworking musician.
Recently, more and more so. Hey, marketing music is a whole other skill to learn as a musician, but one that I'm picking up. And thank you for like letting me join you and interviewing me and helping me to get the music out there. I really, really appreciate it.
Awesome. Until next time, I've been Hardman.